Welcome back to Rank and File Sports, where we are grading every single NFL draft class based on three categories. First of all, we're going to grade based off of whether or not the team drafted the players that fit their needs for next season, as well as the overall talent that they got, just assessing the draft class as a whole. And then finally, the value. Is each player worth where they were drafted at? Were they a steal at that position, or did the team maybe reach a little bit and not get as good a value as they could have if they had traded the pick? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and give them an overall grade. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video.
The new Kings of the North, the Detroit Lions, had draft needs of a defensive tackle, an edge rusher, offensive guard, wide receiver, and a center. And with their first round pick, they reached quite a bit to take Tyleik Williams from Ohio State. But that does address their defensive tackle need. And I think Tyleik Williams is going to be very good in that Detroit defense. It's just going to be the balancing of did you really have to reach that far to take that defensive tackle? I'm assuming they just really liked him, but when a guy like Darius Alexander is available, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it was a bad pick, and I think that Tyleik is going to be disgusting on that Detroit defensive line. But if they wanted to take him, they probably could have traded back into like the middle of the second round and, added another pick or two to this draft class. Um, but the second round pick also a little bit of a reach, but again, addressing a team need an offensive guard, and I think that Tate Ratledge is going to be a very solid guard for this Lions offense. So they are definitely reaching a little bit and could have traded back potentially to get both of these guys. But if you're addressing team needs, it's not a huge deal. Though I do disagree with this next one, taking Isaac Tesla. This was a massive reach and definitely should not have been done. There were so many better wide receivers available, in my opinion. So I have that as a bad pick, personally.
Yeah, I can see why. The guy is 6'4", 214, so he's gonna be a big guy that other teams are gonna have to send a lot of corners at. But like you were saying with like trading back or just like completely changing how you draft, if they could have taken Luther Burden at the end of the first round instead of Tyleik Williams because he fell in the second round to the Bears. Now they have to go up against each other twice a year. But you could have taken Luther Burden at the end of the first round and possibly have gotten Tyleik Williams still at the end of the second round, and then probably could have got Tate Ratledge at the end of the third round. So I'm with you. I don't think that's the greatest pick, but again, there's probably a reason that they picked Isaac Tisla, but I don't agree with it either. The next pick, though, I do think was a solid pick. It addressed a team need, and it was at a very valuable draft slot, and that was getting Miles Frazier out of LSU to address that offensive guard need. I think he is going to be very good, going to be huge to protect Jared Goff and open up the run game for David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, which are the focal point of this Lions offense.
Yeah, and then to go onto the other side of the ball on the line, they grabbed Ahmad Hassanein from Boise State at the edge position. Again, really focusing on the lines here for the Lions, and I think that was very smart. This isn't necessarily a great pick. It's a little bit of a reach. I don't think he was the best edge available at that point. So again, like we've been saying, they saw something in him. So we're not going to judge him too harshly, but it does have to be classified as a little bit of a reach, just, statistically wise.
After that, they took Dan Jackson, a safety from Georgia. Didn't really address a team need, and I really don't think it was necessary for them to draft him. But once again, like we've been saying for a lot of these pick, there's got to be a reason behind why they take some of these players. If he's going to make an impact on special teams or is going to have some niche reasoning on defense, then by all means you can take a draft on him, especially in the seventh round. But at the end of the day, I really don't think that they needed to take someone like Dan Jackson when someone like Isaiah Bond was available, who would have addressed a wide receiver need as well.
Yeah, they did go wide receiver with that last pick, getting Dominic Leggett. Personally, just like you said, I would have taken Isaiah Bond instead. But they got their third Georgia player of the draft, and overall, not a terrible class. They addressed almost all of their team needs. Didn't get a center, but we're gonna give it a B plus as far as addressing team needs goes. Talent wise, it's going to be a B minus. I really like the Tyleik Williams and Tate Ratledge picks. Like Connor was saying, I think that Miles Frazier is going to pan out pretty well. But other than that, nobody really big. I think to Slav, like we were saying, he was a reach. This kind of goes into the value portion. The first three picks, Connor explained how you could actually have worked it out to get Luther Burden and probably still get your first and second round picks. So we do think that the Lions reached on quite a few of these. So we are going to give them a C plus for the value of all of their picks. And then overall, this is going to come out to a B minus. Wasn't a terrible draft class from the Lions, but they probably could have done it a little bit better.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the Lions team was so good last year that it's just the little niche things. And I think also with Aiden Hutchinson coming back, it's going to fill that edge need a little bit more. But overall, I think there maybe could have been a couple other picks that at least from someone on the outside looking in, that seemed a little bit more obvious. With Isaiah Bond, though, I can understand a little bit because I know he's got some issues going on outside of football, but. Still, I feel like there were a couple other options wide receiver wise that they could have made either earlier on or later on as well. But overall, I think it's still a pretty solid draft class for the Lions.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.